Hey guys, so I'm back with my February reading wrap up. It's a bit late this month and I'm really sorry about that. I don't know where February went. It just kind of like disappeared and then all of a sudden March was here and I had loads of things to catch up on. So into the swing of that. I actually didn't read that many books in February, I only read 3, but that means that this will be a nice short video for you guys. So the first book that I read was The Leopard by, let me just double check. It's a really long name. It's by Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa. I've definitely butchered that. But it's the best-selling Italian novel in Italian history. It's all about like the fall of the aristocracy and rebellion and kind of these like revolutionary forces that are coming in, and the last of the line of the leopards of Sicilian aristocracy is thinking about how shit the future is going to be when when there are no more leopards. Yeah, and it's a really interesting look into Italian history, which is something that I don't know very much about at all. It's set in the 1800s, and I think I'll give it 3 stars because although it was fairly enjoyable and I learnt a lot, I had to look it up before doing this because I'd just forgotten what it was about, and if I can't remember what it was about, I didn't enjoy it that much. But next up after that is Dracula by Bram Stoker, which is one of my all-time favourite books. I read it first when I was at uni, so it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago that I read it as part of a feminist module looking at first wave feminism, and it was really interesting to read Dracula from that kind of perspective. And then when I read it again, I don't know, like some of my favourite classics I love reading when I'm at a different point in my life. I've read Wuthering Heights like 4 times across probably like 10 years, and each time I find something new in it, and that's one of my favourite things I love about rereading books. So obviously Dracula, if you don't know the story, it's all about, it's all written in diaries. Jonathan Harker starts off and he basically, as part of his work, has to go to Castle Dracula and meet a count that lives there. Obviously back when people were first reading this, they didn't automatically assume that Dracula is a vampire, because this is obviously the book that made everybody know that. Eventually, like when it got merged into popular culture. So here, like nobody knows, as a reader you wouldn't have known that Dracula was a vampire, but he's very strange. He only comes out at night, it seems, and then Jonathan sees him like scaling down the wall like some kind of bat. But it's very interesting to see how much of like popular vampire culture comes from here. They use garlic to try and prevent the vampire from getting to people. The vampires, obviously, they drink blood and they suck it out of your neck with their fangs. They can turn into bats, but they can also turn into other creatures in this. And there's a lot of kind of, there's 3 female, like, they're kind of like the witches in Macbeth, but they're like these 3 female temptress vampires, and it's all very interesting to see about this like insight into the role of like the seductive woman in Victorian fiction. I love this book so much. I could talk about it for hours, but I'm not going to. Obviously I'm going to give that one 5 stars. And then I read Hannah Whitton's Doing It, which was very short. It was very quick to get through. You have lots of kind of like art on the pages like this, which I really like that kind of idea, but I think the pages were very thin and it made it quite difficult. If you had like some kind of vision impairment, it would actually make it quite difficult to read. So I'm not sure if it would be better off without those, but I think without that art it would be a very much a smaller book. I thought it was very informative. It's all about sex education. She talks through periods, she talks through birth control, she talks through porn, she talks through gender. I'm trying to think of what else there is. STIs, masturbation, consent, healthy relationships, losing your V. And I think one of my favourite things about it is the fact that for things that Hannah wouldn't necessarily know about, she's brought on people that would. So she's got, I think Juno Dawson's in here, who's a trans author talking about what it's like to be trans as a teen. She's got a friend of hers, I think, talking about masturbation from a male point of view, and there's lots of kind of like these snippets of stories from other people that I'm going to give this 3 stars. But with that said, I think for a teen, this would be a much better book. I very much felt like this was aimed at a younger audience, which it probably is, but for somebody that's trying to learn more about sex education in a kind of like well-rounded way and more inclusive way than might be being taught at school. There's a whole chapter on being part of the LGBTQ plus community and how that impacts sex education. Yeah, and lots of things that it answers lots of questions that you might be too embarrassed to ask or a bit too nervous to ask, about things like periods, or if you're worried about having an STI and your parents don't know you're having sex yet. Things like that. I think it would be a very useful book. So yeah, I would recommend it to teens. And that is my February reading wrap up. I'm hoping that March is going to be a bit more full up, but let's see. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.